Tears of the Kingdom will become notorious for introducing many new ideas to the Zelda franchise. It offered an insane amount of freedom, sometimes to a nauseating level for some, but also offered exploration uncomparable by any other game, including Zelda NES and Breath of the Wild. But this game also took the opportunity to reintroduce older ideas like themed dungeons, and the purpose of this video, Ganondorf. Something interesting with this game and story particularly is the reintroduction of Ganondorf and the retelling of Ocarina of Time's story. Now, prior to Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf was just one Gerudo man who started his treachery in Ocarina of Time. You meet him near the beginning of the game, while he's in the process of pledging false allegiance to the King of Hyrule. During this interaction, Zelda confers with us believing Ganondorf to be evil. Off-screen, before the game begins, we know Ganondorf to have sieged and attacked the three regions in search for the spiritual stones, although he came out unsuccessful. Eventually, once Link opened the Door of Time, Ganondorf stole the Triforce of Power locked inside in an attempt to steal the full Triforce. Following this, he conquers Hyrule. Inside of the Temple of Time, Link meets Kaepora Gaebora, Rauru, the Sage of Light, who tasks you to awaken the other sages. After this interaction, you're left inside the temple for 7 years to wield the Master Sword. Once you've awakened all the sages, you can finally defeat and seal Ganondorf away. Following Ocarina of Time, he's appeared in 2 other games, but in alternate timelines. And if you're unaware of the timelines, all you need to know is that one is wet and the other is dark. In the wet timeline, we catch back up with Ganondorf, who's spent possibly hundreds of years sealed away, and now he's back at his antics trying to steal the Triforce again. During this game, we learn some of Ganondorf's motives in stealing the Triforce and conquering Hyrule. In his words, he explains, "My country lay within a vast desert. When the sun rose into the sky, a burning wind punished my lands, searing the world. And when the moon climbed into the dark of the night, a frigid gale pierced our homes. No matter when it came, the wind carried the same thing: death. But the winds that blew across the green fields of Hyrule brought something other than suffering and ruin. I coveted that wind, I suppose." With this motive and a sprinkle of evil on the side, he collected the pieces of Triforce to wish on them to recede the floods of Hyrule and give the land to himself. His wish was short-lived, however, when King Daphnes Nohansen Hyrule, the King of Red Lions, steals the wish and destroys the ancient land of Hyrule. This enraged Ganondorf, and he attempted to slay Link and Zelda. However, he failed and was killed, turning to stone while uttering the words, "The wind. It is blowing." And that's the end of this Ganondorf variant. In the Dark Timeline, Ganondorf spent a lot of time sealed again, but during his intended execution, decided to say no, and lived, by a divine prank of the gods. Because of this, he was instead sealed in the Twilight Realm, where he essentially became a god to its inhabitants, and influenced a specific Twilight, Zant, to do his bidding. After a bit of fooling around, Ganondorf escaped the Twilight Realm, and eventually Zant was killed with the expectation for Ganondorf to resurrect him. After a bit of fighting with Link, Ganondorf is overpowered and Link thrusts the Master Sword into his chest. Now, Ganondorf survived this attack before, so surely he'll just use the Triforce again and, nope. Ghost Sant goes ahead and snaps his neck and kills Ganondorf. Now, here, Ganondorf had little motive besides revenge and evil for evil's sake, and it didn't really work here from a story perspective. I mean, Ganondorf intended to combine the Light and Twilight realms to become the king of both, but he was quite inefficient in doing so. Now, we could explain it away as him going insane by spending all that time in the Twilight Realm, I suppose. Now, with that out of the way, who is Ganondorf in Tears of the Kingdom? But before we get to that portion of the video, I'll state that I won't be including any spoilers about the final battle or late game story elements, but I will supply a broad understanding of Ganondorf and his character, including early cutscenes. So if you consider that a spoiler, then consider coming back to this video once you've completed a fair portion of the game. And without further delay, let's get into it. Tears of the Kingdom introduced us to Ganondorf in the very beginning, but in a decrepit mummy fashion. This is from him being in a sort of stasis for the past however long, but not quite important for us, as throughout the game we are shown early history and rise of Ganondorf, starting with an attempted siege of Hyrule, but this failed due to the immense power of the Zonai, Hyrule King, Rauru, the Sage of Light, not to be confused with Kaepora Gaebora, Rauru, the Sage of Light from Ocarina of Time. After this loss, Ganondorf changed his tactic to gain the trust of the Hyrule's king and queen by pledging a false allegiance. This lie was quickly caught by Zelda as she sensed a great evil in Ganondorf. Later in the game, Link is tasked to find the sages of Hyrule. I could surely keep going, but it would become quite clear that Tears of the Kingdom, in a way, is retelling Ocarina of Time. Even if we look at the Ganondorf pledging scene alone, the parallels are uncountable, and it's not a bad thing per se. A Link Between Worlds was mostly a retelling of A Link to the Past, but with new gameplay hook and varying characters. Tears of the Kingdom accomplished this in much of the same way, so you might ask, why did I also bring up the following stories for Ganondorf? Well, the full story of Ganondorf is quite important to know, as it allows us to see how well Ganondorf as an antagonist performs in Tears of the Kingdom. You see, the Ganondorf we met in Tears of the Kingdom is a completely separate character from Ocarina's. They share nothing besides name, country, genetics, and appearances. But this also includes motives. In Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf has no clear motives besides evil for evil's sake. And we saw how that impacted the Dark Timeline, having the only reasonable explanation be insanity. And insanity isn't the worst reason for some villains, but when it comes to the Ganondorf we saw in Wind Waker, we understood he was evil, but in a way, he was humanized. He may have just wanted the power, but he also wanted his people freed from the winds that brought death. I was hoping there would be an interesting complex with the Gerudo in Tears of the Kingdom, with the return of Ganondorf, and what it would mean for the race who was once loyal to him. But, spoiler alert, that hardly ever occurred. Ganondorf having little to no motive, as I can see, makes him, while still threatening, less imposing, or rather present. We could always explain this away as Nintendo making simple Nintendo plotlines, but that doesn't mean this kid's game should be immune to any critiques. I don't want a God of War antagonist, but sometimes it's the breeze that makes the story count. So, what's next for The Legend of Zelda? I mean, there's always a chance we get another direct sequel, or maybe a 2D game, or Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity 2. But I think what I really want to see next is a Zelda antagonist with more than one dimension. Breath of the Wild brought exploration to a new level. Tears of the Kingdom cemented that, but made it three-dimensional with exploration of the skies and depths. And next, I want those dimensions and depths applied to the villains. But hey, I've been me, and I hope you'll subscribe to me. And until next time, keep cool. Bye-bye.